Hello everybody and welcome to yet another episode of What's on My Table. And today we've got the Godox X2T trigger, which is a trigger made by Godox for its Godox flashes. And it's compatible with several cameras and flashes. This particular Godox flash works with any of the Godox flashes, and it also works with various combinations of cameras, which include Sony, Fuji, Canon, Nikon, and even Leica. So what is it that this particular product has in addition to the features provided by its two predecessors? We've got two models which were released prior to the X2T. The first one was the X1T and the XPro. The XPro definitely is still sold, and it's more expensive than this. I picked this up for around 4,000 Indian rupees, and the XPro is available for around 5,500, while the X1T I don't think is available, but even if it's available, you should be able to get it for around 3,000. So what are some of the features in this that make this better than the two predecessors, and what are the things that are missing in this that the XPro has? We will learn very soon. So let's go ahead and open it. What are we waiting for? So the X2T comes with a 1-year official warranty from Nikita distributors, or the official distributors of Godox in India, which is a great thing, because if you buy it with the Nikita warranty, it means that you're completely covered by the Godox warranty, and you can walk into any of the service centers across India and then get your product serviced. So I'm going to open this. Let's see what's inside it. So the box, this is the trigger itself. So it's got the Godox sticker and that's the warranty claim number, and we've got a manual, and of course I've gotten my manual stamped from the place I purchased it. So I bought it from RK Photo Guide, and they gave me a good deal on this. So the entire body looks something like this. It's got a top panel, it's got a face behind where you can see the display. It's got 3 different settings that you can set here. It's got a small little hot shoe on top, just in case you want to still continue using a hot shoe on top of this flash, which can be controlled either by this or can be independently controlled. This hot shoe is specifically made for Canon, and it'll go on a Canon body. So we've got a Canon body here, but I'm just going to show you some of the features that make this a little better than its predecessors. So let's get to the point. The first thing that I'd like to tell you about is that this particular model has one feature which is not there in the X-Pro or the X1T, and that is the Bluetooth feature. So you can actually control the output of various flashes using the Bluetooth mode using an app on your phone. And it's a pretty simple procedure that you can set up, and you can actually control the output of the flashes from your phone. And you can also set up the lights so as to work with your phone, and you could change manual settings on your phone if it's in the list of compatible phones, and you can make sure the flash works with your phone camera, which is a great feature. But it's not like most of us would be using it if we have a professional camera, or if you've got an iPhone 13 Pro, well, why not? You'll probably benefit from using lights, maybe at 1:128. For starters, we've got a place where we can put the battery, like every other trigger. So I put in 2 rechargeable Eneloop batteries into this. They sit pretty well. Individual buttons for each of the channels or groups that you want to work with. You can have up to 5 groups or 5 flash groups that can be controlled by this trigger. And you can see this is made for the Canon version of cameras. So this would work on any Canon, and so the hot shoe is custom made. There's one important feature that I wanted to tell you about. The X2T trigger, if you buy a Nikon or a Canon model, you can interchangeably use it if you're only using it in manual mode between a Canon and a Nikon. However, if you buy the Sony system, the Sony trigger has the trigger position of this pin slightly different from the other. So I actually checked it myself at the showroom to see if I would be able to put the Sony trigger onto my Canon flash, and it would just not trigger it even in manual mode. Whereas if you've got a Nikon or a Canon, or even if you've got a Canon like I purchased, this would work on a Nikon camera. This would also work on a Sony camera, but in manual mode. And if you're just doing a lot of studio activity in manual mode, this would work perfectly fine. So you could interchange it on any of the cameras. If you want to use complete functions like the TTL feature, where you want to like control multiple lights and you want the camera to evaluate the metering and the lighting overall, all by the use of this system, well, then you'll have to buy a dedicated C version for Canon, N version for Nikon, S version for Sony, F version for Fuji, and maybe a L version for the Leica. So coming to the display is a little better than the displays used on the X1T, but this is a pretty good match for your XPro trigger, which has got a lot of features. So let me jump to one of the most important points. What's available in this that is not available in your XPro trigger, and what's available in your XPro trigger that's not available in this? So this has got that app connectivity feature where you could use Bluetooth to connect to the app and control the flash outputs. And you can also use your phone camera to actually trigger the flashes and use it with your phone. Whereas the XPro doesn't have this. Of course, the X1T doesn't have it because it's a much more basic version of the X2T. What is it that is there in your XPro trigger that is not in this? Well, you might keep wondering, why is the XPro priced a little higher? One of the main features of the XPro is that it's kind of pointed upwards, so it's a little comfortable in certain ways. Whereas they said some of the other users who use these triggers said that it actually kind of gets stuck between your camera strap while you're using it, but I've not yet used this, so I do not know. But yes, the XPro was pretty good. I mean, it has a display which is like this, so you can see it, whereas you can't really see it when you're looking at or looking through the camera. But I think in most cases, while we're using the trigger in a studio environment, I don't think you're changing the details too often. Once you set the light, you'll probably get back and you'll have enough time to change the lightings. It's not like you're seeing this and seeing this. You can't really see it at this distance. That said, let us try and understand what is it that is there in the XPro that is not in the X2T. Any guesses? That is the TSM mode. There is a TSM mode on the XPro trigger where you can just press the XPro or the TSM button and it would actually evaluate all the existing lights and give you an average exposure. And based on that TSM, you could probably increase your flash output or decrease your flash output. So that is an auto feature that is included. It's a little more of an intelligent processor which is in your XPro trigger, which would help you analyze how multiple flashes could work together automatically, like in an TTL mode, and then you could just increase or decrease the overall exposure on all the flashes in that particular model. Then that's called the TSM feature. Well, I didn't know about it until I did my research before buying this. So why did I buy this and not that model? One reason is because I already have it. I made a big mistake of leaving a Duracell battery inside the trigger, and it wasn't for too long. It was just a week, and I later realized that the battery had leaked out. It had eaten into the plastic. I think the nickel metal hydride rechargeable batteries worked better, although they would show you a slightly lower battery percentage. So if you can see here, it's actually showing you that the battery is empty. So if you have a voltage which is less than 3 volts, which two batteries are supposed to show, or less than 2.8 volts, then it's going to show you that the battery is low and you need to replace it. Whereas the fact of the matter is that nickel metal hydride batteries usually show around 1.2 to 1.3 volts and not the entire 1.5 volts like your alkaline batteries would. Alkaline batteries actually show you a full battery when put into this particular trigger, and I've noticed that on both their triggers. So some of the good things on this trigger, let me get to the points, is that these triggers, even if I cover it, you'll see that the buttons, the A, B, C buttons are all illuminated internally. So even if you're in a dark environment, you'll be able to see the A, B, C, D and E. One of the drawbacks of this against the XPro trigger is the fact that you can see the A, B, C, D and E all together on the display on the XPro trigger, whereas in this you'd only be able to see 3 of the channels. But believe me, every time I've used the XPro trigger, I've only used it to control around 3 flashes, because I just got 3 flashes. I got the AD600 Pro, I have 2 of those, and I have one single AD200. So I use the AD200 as more of a backlight, and the AD600 Pro is as side lighting and one main light, which will be giving you the soft face light. So I've not really seen the need for us to be able to see all 5 channels together. So coming to operation, it's pretty simple. So here you go. I've got like a close-up of the actual trigger, so you can see it, and I've even kept the exposure a little low, so when I switch it on, you'll be able to see the controls very clearly on it. So as you can see, any button actually wakes up the trigger from a sleep mode, and let's quickly go through what's on the trigger. So right in front, you've got the focus assist lamp, and you've got the hot shoe on top. You also got A, B, C, D, E, which are 5 dedicated buttons, and also a flash test button. So if you use this, you can test each of your flashes, or if all of them are synced together. The A, B, C, D, and E are individual buttons for each of the groups that you've set it to. Here you've got a sync port, and you have a USB port, USB-C type port for any kind of firmware update. You've got a wheel here, which helps you change the setting. So coming to the settings, I think we've got pretty straightforward settings. So if I click on A, or if I move to B, it shows me what mode B is in. If B is in manual mode, I can change the settings from the manual mode and change the power output directly. If I want to change the mode, I just click on this, that's off. We've got TTL, and you can cycle between off, TTL, and manual mode. If you want multi-mode, then you have to hold down the mode button and you will get the multi-mode. So as you can see, let's go through all these options. So when I click the menu option, so I have a scan option. So if I set the scan option, it'll tell me which are the channels that would work best for the area I'm working in, based on the interference at that location. So I'll just fast forward this. So the probable options for the channels are 32, 31, 30, 29, 18, 6, 10, or 9. So when it comes to channel, I can change the channel to whatever I want. Click on set and I can change the channel, but I'll leave it to 1 instead of 32, because we're just going to be using 1. I don't want to change any settings. Coming to the next option, it's the ID setting. ID setting is like more like a digital method of locking your device and your trigger with each other. So if you're shooting any event and you've got multiple people using similar flashes or setups, then you will not be affected by it. So that said, we are not going to change the ID setting because we do not want our trigger to get confused, and we just wanted to keep it in the existing condition. PC sync. So this port can be used as an in port or an out port. So when you say it's an out port, what happens is anything that is mounted on this flash, this will work like a receiver and it will trigger this flash off. So that's PC sync. So we go to delay. Delay is for specific cameras where there might be a small delay between, say you've got a 0.1 second or a 0.2 second delay between the time you click and the time the flash actually goes off. So you got several steps up to, I think, 4-5 milliseconds. So we'll not really use that. So I set it to off. So off is the first position. So the next one is the shoot mode. In shoot mode, you have multiple modes. The first one is a single mode where you're a single user and you use this flash to trigger multiple flashes. When you select the second one where you have 3 headers here, what that does is it actually gives you an option for one person to be using this trigger, and another person can actually control the output. Same with the app, you can use the app to separately control whatever this trigger is doing, and this trigger just becomes a dummy trigger which is on the camera. So you could be sitting elsewhere and you could control the output of each of the flashes. So we leave that to the same old setting. Coming back to distance, this is an interesting setting. You got 1 to 100 meters and you have 0 to 30 meters. Considering that most of us are going to be shooting within 30 meters, which is almost close to 60 to 70 feet, I don't think we're shooting at distances further than that unless you're shooting in a desert or an open area. So I'll leave that to 0 to 30, and I presume that would save us some battery. So when you talk about steps, so if you're going to be doing a lot of water droplet kind of product shots which need a very fast flash speed, you could select this. But I would go with the 256 with a combination of 0.3 steps, so that we can shoot and we can make our increments in 0.3 and rather than 0.1, which would be too small a step for me unless you're doing something extremely intricate. So I'd put it at 1/256 and 0.3. So that done, we can go to the next option here. The step is done. Group. So groups, you can select whether you want A to E 5 steps or you just want a 3 group setup, which is A to C. I would actually prefer A to C, so I think I'll just keep it to A to C, and I've not really done that before, but I'm sure this is going to help me. One of the main advantages of the previous model that we had is that the display is pretty big. You can see this XPro trigger, which is again made by Godox, and it's pretty cool because it's really big and you have all the flash settings showing up, and it's got one extra feature which is called the TCM, where you could control all the flashes and you could get an averaged out TTL. When you press the TCM, it'll take an average of all the flashes there, and that is not available in the X2T. The X2T has got the Bluetooth and app option, while this doesn't have the Bluetooth and app option. So if you go back to this, I think you can see there is no Bluetooth option here. There's only TCM, which you can set, and there's a beep and all the other options, but the distance is also set to 0 to 1 to 100. I think that's basically what it is. So coming back to the X2T, let's go back to the mode. You can see how it just came out of the sleep mode. And now I just go back to the menu, and we've just got done with the group settings. So standby is a 60-second standby. So if you want to increase that, you can do that. You could probably move it to a 60-minute or a 30-minute, which I think is too much. So 60-second is ideal for me. This light option states that the light will be on for around 12 seconds, or you could just switch it off. So if you switch it off, it gets really dark, or you could keep it on forever, or you could keep it on for 12 seconds. So we leave it at 12 seconds because that's a good idea. Coming back to the LCD, you have options of changing the value here, but I didn't see anything noticeably different with this LCD setting. So I'll just leave it at say 0 for now. And we come back to this and go to sync. You have a first curtain sync, you have a second curtain sync, and you have a high-speed sync. You could choose between 3. High-speed sync, especially when you're shooting outdoors and trying to beat the sun. Then you have the Bluetooth option. I'm sure if you keep the Bluetooth on, your power and your battery is going to get drained out faster, so I've kept it off. There's a beep option here. If I go set it to on, it says it'll give me a beep, but I don't really hear any beep, so I'll set it to off. When I moved it to on, it didn't really give me any sound. You don't really hear anything. So coming to the zoom option, the zoom option is to control the flash output on some of your speedlight flashes, like I think the 8680, the smaller ones which go on camera. But we're not really going to use that because I only use the 600 and also the 200. So that's basically all the settings. Apart from that, I'll just show you what the build quality is like. The build quality is great. You've got this hot shoe, and you've got this new system which locks in really well. So we've got A on TTL. So say I want to change the TTL mode. So I just go to A and I go to mode. It'll put me back in manual. I go to B, put the mode in manual. I go to C, I put the mode. I go in a manual. Say I just go ahead and put this at 1/32. I go to A and I make it half power. So now if I set this and come out of that menu, and if I press the all button, hold it down for a bit, you can see all the 3 are highlighted. So if I increase the power, everything increases by 0.3, everything increases by 0.7, and everything increases to 1 full stop higher. So this is a good advantage if you want to increase the lighting for the entire set by say a few stops, or you just want to do it in increments of 0.3 or 0.1 based on what you set in the menu. So that's a pretty cool option. So we've gone through every single option for the trigger. The trigger feels very plasticky without the batteries, but once you have the batteries, then it feels much sturdier and better to use. So that said, I think we've completed a full circle preview of the flash. This second button here that you see is to get your flash to focus in dark conditions. So this will emit a beam like a matrix that will kind of give you a crosshatch, which will allow the camera to focus in dark conditions. So if you like the review, please go ahead and like the video, and if you feel like, please do subscribe. I'm putting in a lot of effort to review some of these products, so we photographers as a community can grow and learn and even get a first-hand review of these products before we purchase them. So if you liked it, please go ahead and subscribe. It's just an earnest effort to help other fellow photographers. Thank you, and we'll see you soon.